Hi, everybody. Yes, it's Kyla again, and welcome back to the Ghosts That Haunt Me. For this episode, I'm actually going to get a little bit personal because I am going to be talking about where I live. So, there have been some hauntings here throughout the years. This is the basement of a house that has been in my family since before I was born. It was actually built by my grandfather. And yeah, I think it was 1962 or 1963. He had built the house, and I mean, not by himself, obviously. He had help. He had a lot of people who helped him out. He had a lot of friends, and yeah, so the house was built in the 60s. My father purchased the house from my grandfather in 1989, and in the 1990s, he had built some additions onto it, an upper top level and an addition like an in-law suite over on the side. And now living in this house is myself, my father, and my brother. And my brother has the in-law suite. My father lives upstairs, and I live in this basement apartment, which I love. It's very, very me. So I love this place, and I'm very happy. You know, I moved away for a little while, and then I've come back home. So this house has been a part of my life my entire life. So I'm very, very attached to it, obviously, and I have experienced some things from time to time. Some of them are going to be extremely personal for me because I will be talking about people who have passed on that I know that I was close to, like family members and things like that. And but there's a couple here and there that I don't know who it is and can't explain it. I have an idea, but that's about it. I don't really know a lot of history of the land that this is on in particular. I know that before it became, you know, settlements for different houses and stuff, it was farmland, great big area of farmland. And then before that, I know that it, like, and we're talking hundreds of years before it was farmland, it was an indigenous campground. So, not quite poltergeist, not an indigenous burial ground, but an indigenous campground. So, that's a, you know, so every once in a while my grandfather was building this place, they actually had an archaeological dig here because they did find some things. They would find arrowheads and they would find beading and things like that. And the biggest thing they found here was a kiln. It was apparently the biggest, most intact kiln that for pottery and things like that that they had seen in I when they were building the house, so the 60s. So up until the 60s, they had not found another kiln that size. And so my grandfather's like, okay, well, we just can't get rid of this. So he, you know, they called whoever you call for archaeological. They had a whole archaeological dig here before my grandfather could continue building the house. So that's pretty much all I know about the history of the land, was that it was farmland, and then, you know, hundreds of years before that it was an indigenous campground. So that's all I really know. And then my grandfather built this place in the 60s, and here I am. So that's all I really know about it. I've gone in the backyard and looked for arrowheads and things like that. I have never found anything. I guess it's been pretty much dug dry. The only thing I found once was a rock, and I do have it. I just don't know where it is right now. It's a rock and it's got some little cuttings out of it, like it was used for some sort of stand. And I do use it actually. I took it. I'm thinking it was probably when it was the farmland. Somebody just sort of sliced this rock into a certain way to hold something in place or something, but I use it for business cards. So that's, like I said, that's all I really have for the history of the land. But some of the things I'm going to take you are going to be upstairs. So let's go. Woo! Up the stairs. Okay, we are in the main kitchen area upstairs, and if you hear any meowing or if you hear any crinkling of plastic, it's my cat over here. She's playing around with the plastic bag over here, and she's like mewing and saying, you know, why aren't you paying attention to me? So if you hear anything like that, it's not a ghost, it's my cat. So although I have had an experience with a cat ghost in here before, but that's for another story in another room. But we're in the kitchen here, and I have to say most of my ghostly experiences that I personally have are normally visual. I don't hear very much, and I actually am uncomfortable with auditory things. I mean, it does happen. This one I'm going to be talking about now is an example of that. It does happen from time to time, but most often I will see, but not usually hear. So, but this one I heard. I was actually I was in my 20s, I know that. And I was doing, I don't know if it was, I don't think I was doing the dishes. I think I was preparing food for dinner or something like that. But I was in my 20s and I'm doing whatever over here at the sink. And I could hear like singing, but it wasn't like, it was no words. It was like a humming almost, but not humming. It was like doo 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 doo, and it was all like minor tones almost, and it was coming from outside. And the window was open, and I'm like, who the hell is in our backyard? And it sounded like a young girl. So I'm like, there's no young children in this area. There's no, teenagers or anything. At the time, there was none in the area at that time. So I'm like, what is this? And I could hear it. It was almost like, I can't remember the exact tune, but it was like, oh, Kitty doesn't like that. But it was like that. They were all kind of like minor tones. And I literally stopped everything I was doing to make sure I was hearing it. Like, it was like, did I just hear something else from whatever I was doing or something? And so I actually closed my eyes. I stopped everything I was doing. There was no television on. There was no radio on or anything like that. I turned the water off from what I was doing and closed my eyes. And sure enough, whatever the tune was, I honestly can't even tell you. It did sound lilting, and I mean, the noise itself wasn't scary. I didn't even really consider it scary, but disturbing in the fact that I had no idea where it was coming from. Who the hell was in the backyard? So the stairs for the backyard is just over here. I went outside to the backyard to look around, and there was nobody there. And it's literally like 2 steps, so there's no way a child or a teenager or something in this area of the backyard could get out, because you got to go all the way around and down to get out of this backyard. So I'm like, all right, and so and then I came back inside, and I heard it again. So it was like a second time, whatever I honestly, I wish I could remember the tune, but I don't. I just remember that it was all in minor tones and very lilting and almost comforting. It was very strange. So I went outside again, and there was nobody out there. So I was like, okay, I'm just going to leave it at that. I honestly didn't hear it a third time. I came inside, did not hear it again. So I left it at that. But later in the day, somebody else who used to live here came in, and I was talking to him, and I said, yeah, because he and I were both really into the ghosts and everything like that. I said, I heard something. I said, it was over here, and it sounded like a young girl, like maybe, I'd say 13, 12 years old, singing. And he went, oh, you mean this? And he did the exact same tune. He was like, doo, 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 doo. And I'm like, yeah. He's like, yeah, I've heard her several times. I was like, okay. So that was the first time I'd ever heard her, and shocked the hell out of me. I was like, okay. Not really big on hearing things. Don't feel too comfortable with it. I'm more into the visual, but it was an experience I never forgot. Like, this is quite a while ago, many, many years ago, and I still remember it. Can't remember the exact tune. Wish I could, but I just remember minor tones, and I remember it was a young girl, so she must have been 12 or 13, and don't know who she was, but I found it really, really interesting. We're still in the kitchen, and I do have a story that is extremely personal. A few of these stories here are very personal for me. This one really touched me deeply. But before I talk about that, I wanted to make mention of something that I said in a vlog last year. I'm actually going to be transferring it over to this channel, but I had said, I was talking with a friend, and we were talking about an experience that we had together, and it was a poltergeist experience. And I said that was the very first time I'd ever experienced poltergeist activity, and I don't know why I said that. I don't know if it was just in the heat of the moment, I forgot other ones, but I have had more than one. I've had more than one experience of poltergeist activity. So I'm not quite sure why I said it in that vlog. So if you happen to have seen that one and you're like, hey, wait a minute, you're gonna be talking about poltergeist activity now, and you said you never had any before, so, okay. To reiterate, I was mistaken in the first vlog there when I was talking to my friend and said that I'd never had poltergeist activity. I have. This one came after that one though, but I have had poltergeist activity happen to me. And this one, really, really touched me, and really it meant something to me, and it's how I perceive it. So to make an extremely long story short, my mother passed away in 2017, and she passed away from cancer, and we did not I did not handle it well. I was not really allowed time to grieve for a very long time because of other things that were going on in the household, and it was basically chaos. And I basically just sort of kept everything internalized until maybe about 6 months later, and then I went bleh. But so I basically internalized everything and just sort of let it stew inside, and didn't let anybody see I was upset as upset as I was. So, but my mother's name was Shelley, and I bought her this magnet way back in the day when I was, I don't know, maybe 12, 13. Well, I'd have to be so maybe 14 when I had a job. So I was able to buy this when I had money. so it's just a fridge magnet. There's nothing special about it except that it's got her name on it. It's actually spelled the way she spelled her name. She would always have people who would always say, "You're missing the second E. Everybody misses that second E." But it says Shelley's Kitchen. A hug would make my day. And it has been up here since, I don't know, since we got this fridge. It's always been here, and it doesn't move. Sometimes it goes like this because it's just one little tiny magnet on the back, and I have tried to think of a rational explanation for this, but I can't. This was about maybe, it was after her celebration of life, so I'd have to say maybe a week after she died, and I was walking from down here to here, so I was walking through like this to go downstairs, and all of a sudden this magnet flew off, went like this, actually flipped upside down and fell on the floor. And I was like, okay, and I picked it up and it said Shelley's Kitchen. A hug would make my day. So I kind of get the feeling that it may have been my mom asking for a hug, or that it was her hugging me, and my cats. But and so I tried to find a rational explanation. I'm like, okay, maybe I was walking too heavy, so I was like, I'm moving the camera and nothing here's, the camera's moving, nothing on here is moving, nothing, so I'm just gonna make that, not do that anymore. But literally it was just like it's coming down a little bit, but this right in front of me went like this as I was walking by, or starting to walk by, and it went like that. Like it literally flipped upside down and then fell flat face up on the floor. So I can't get rid of this now. Every time that I'm like, oh, it's a cheap piece of plastic. There's nothing special about it. But to me, that was like my mom giving me a hug when I needed it the most. So that's what I like to think anyway. Okay, so more personal stories about family members here. So I just feel that these stories need to be told because it's they're very, very sad, and they're very, very personal to me, but at the same time there's some sort of comfort that we go on, and we try and make sure that the ones that are still here sometimes are taken care of and are not going to go crazy. Doesn't always work, but and I am a little crazy, but anyway, this is about my grandfather and my mother. This happened about 3 weeks before my mother passed away, and my grandfather, who had passed away 2 years before that. Now, this door over here is the adjoining door to where my grandparents lived after my father purchased this house. There's a whole in-law suite over there, and it's actually big. It's got a basement. It's beautiful, and my dad just fixed it up recently too in the last couple years, and it's gorgeous over there. It's like, I want to live over there now. So, but I was very, 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 very close to my grandfather. I feel like he is the only person ever to truly understand me and didn't ask me to become something I wasn't. And I was very close to my grandfather, and his passing did devastate me. Um, but there's this adjoining door over here. They had a back entrance too. They would go around to the backyard, and there was an entrance back there, so they would use that as well if they went out and did, their shopping or whatever, some gallivanting around or whatever. But so this is the adjoining door, and he would come over and he would come visit and talk with us and stuff like that. And after a while, we started making them dinner, so I would always take the dinners over to them and things like that. So, but he would whistle every time he came down this hallway. I think he scared my mother one time. My mother had a little bit of a hearing problem, so she couldn't hear people walking every once in a while. So I think he just sort of sneaked up on her without him thinking about or realizing it. And after that, he always like sang a tune or whistled as he came down the hall. And I can't whistle, but he would just be like, nice little ditty, and that would be about it. And then after a while, he had to walk on a walker, so he'd have a walker with him, and he'd be like whistling, and he'd come down the hallways, and he'd be like, and then afterwards, once he was gone, I never saw him until this moment, and I never heard him or smelled him or anything like that again until about 3 weeks before my mother passed away. I had gone downstairs. I was preparing to become her caregiver because what she wanted at the time was to have a caregiver until it was time to go to a hospice. She did not want to die in the home. She wanted to go to a hospice. But so at that time, I was preparing to be the caregiver until the time came. And so I had gone downstairs to get something for her. I can't remember what it was. And I had come upstairs, and I went to my mom, who was in the living room here, and she says, "Did you hear whistling?" And I'm like, "No." And she says, "Were you whistling?" I'm like, "No, absolutely not." And that freaked me out. And I don't know if it was my grandfather coming down the hallway whistling, but I have heard stories, and I don't know if they're true, but it's of people when they hear whistling, they are the next to die. It's like if you hear phantom whistling, you will be the next to die. I don't know if that's just folklore or whatever it is, but her saying that, and though I didn't express it to her, I freaked out. I was just like, no, I didn't hear anything. And she's like, I swear I heard somebody whistling. And then we left it at that. And I was like, okay. And I'd say maybe about an hour later, I was sitting in a chair over here where I could see down the hall. And there was a chair at the time that you could sit in, and you could look down here, and you could see one of my grandparents coming out of their door and walking down the hallway. And I didn't hear anything. And I was talking to my mother, who was opposite me on the other end of the room, and I saw movement in the corner of my eye. So I turned my head, and I saw the ghost of my grandfather. And the reason why I know it was a ghost, I mean, aside from the fact that he was already passed on for 2 years, he stopped at, I'd say, this level, like right where the arms are. He had his arms out like this, like he was on his walker walking down the hall, but there was no bottom half. There's no bottom half of his torso. There was no legs, and it was misty. But I could clearly see the image of my grandfather's face in this mist. And it was slightly colored. It was like a muted color, so it wasn't like he was in black and white, or he wasn't wearing a shroud. It was nothing like that. He looked like my grandpa in a misty picture, like my grandfather in the fog. That's what it looked like to me. And he was walking down the hall, and he got to basically where I am right now, and he disappeared. And at first I looked at this as comfort. I was like, he's here during this difficult time to comfort us. And then I thought more about it, and I began to panic again, because I'm like, what if he's here for my mom? And I was like, I'm not ready for this. I'm not prepared for this. One of those type of things. And I did start to panic a little bit. I, again, can't let my mom see this. So I was just like, okay. And that was the only time in this house that I have seen my grandfather. And I kind of get the feeling, there's a part of me that's kind of confused about this, because my grandfather, who lived here with us, was my mother's father-in-law. her father had passed away in 2011. So I was like, I found it peculiar. It's like if he's the one, that he'd be the one taking her to wherever you go when you go, right? And I was just like, is he here for her? Is he here to make sure she goes peacefully? Like I was like, I don't know why it would be him and not her father, you know, like. But then I've discussed this with a few people, and they're just like, we're all our souls, we're all sort of the energy of who we meet with are all like intertwined. So the, I don't know how to explain this. Like the energies could be more intertwined in the afterlife rather than in the physical life. And so maybe he was, maybe in a previous physical life he was someone different, because my mother was very close to her father. It wasn't like they were estranged or anything like that. She was also close to my other grandfather, her father-in-law. So I don't know, I thought that was a bit strange. But some people were saying, you know, just because, you know, maybe in this life they were daughter-in-law, father-in-law, but maybe in a past life they were something else that was much closer. Or maybe he's just the assigned guardian to take her back. You know, like it's like, I don't know. I don't know. I just know that at the time I thought it was really nice. Then I was freaked out. And then all hell broke loose, you know, a few weeks later, and kind of forgot about it for a while. but I can see him very clearly. He was in a mist. It was like my grandfather in a mist, and he stopped basically at the mid, you know, torso area, where the ribs, I guess, the rib cage would end. And yeah, so that was my experience with my grandfather. So now I am in the upstairs hallway. This is the addition that my father had built. And I used to have a room in here. It's down this hallway here, and my parents' room is over there. So basically, if you go down this hallway, turn right, you'll end up in my room. If you go down this hallway and turn left, you'd end up in my parents' room. And this story is about this light. Now, the light is just a little night light that basically you plug into the wall, and you don't have to turn any switches on to turn it on or off or anything like that. It's an automatic. Once it gets dark enough, the lights go on. It's kind of like street lights, you know? It's like, oh, this is dark enough, so we're going to bring the lights up now. So it's one of those type of things. I don't think we have some that turn into flashlights if there's a power outage. That's not one of them. This is one that I think just when it goes dark, the lights come on. It's like a solar thing. But this event happened just 2 days after my mother passed away, and left me going, I'm wondering what the hell this is about, but okay. So this is where it's plugged into the wall. It's right down here, normal plug, everything's fine. It's over by a heater. Nothing peculiar about this at all. It has been in this wall for decades. Hasn't gone anywhere, hasn't done anything, nothing special about it. There's nothing fascinating about this nightlight except 2 days after my mother was gone. It wasn't here. I came up to go to bed one night. It wasn't in the wall. It was actually in the middle of the floor. So it wasn't even like, I can't even, where I'm situated right here, it's not, I can't even put it in the same spot because it was literally in the middle of the hallway floor. So it went from here all the way over to there. And I remember thinking that was really, really odd. And I'm like, why would Dad take this out? Is there something wrong with it? And if there's something wrong with it, why would he just take it out and toss it into the middle of the hallway? Like, that made no sense. And I'm like, okay, there has to be a reason. And I know my dad's not thinking rationally right now because of, you know, my mother being gone and whatnot. So I'm like, I'll just let this pass. And obviously this is where he wants it, so I'm not going to say anything. So I just let it go at that. But yeah, it was in the middle of the floor, so just like, you know, like just lying there. So it was just like, you know, here's if I can find a space. So it was just like lying there. And it wasn't like it was right here. It was in the middle of the hallway. So maybe a meter or 2 meters this way in the hallway. So just in the middle of the floor. I can't see it. I mean, I know it rolls a little bit, but not enough that it's going to roll all the way out there. It does stop. So, like I said, I thought it was my father. And yeah, so I'm not sure what that was about. And a final note to the story with the nightlight here. My father asked me about it later in the day. I think it was the next day because I remember I was coming up, I was going to bed, and that's where I found it. But later the next day, my father saw me and he was like, "By the way, why did you just toss the nightlight into the hallway?" And I'm like, "What are you talking about?" And he's like, "I found the nightlight in the middle of the floor in the hallway. I'd like to know why it was there." And I was like, "I didn't do that. I saw it and thought you did it, so I left it there because I figured you had a reason for leaving it there." He's like, "No, why would I do that? That's dumb." And I was like, "I don't know." I said, "I have no idea why you would do that." So I said, I saw it there myself last night, so I just left it there." And I didn't want to do it. I didn't want to move it just in case, you put it there for a reason and you would get upset if I moved it. So I just left it. And he's like, "Nope." So again, I'm thinking that might have been my mom. I think she might have been, I don't know, saying hello, saying I'm here, saying something. I don't know. But I like to think that it was my mom. And this next story actually happened in my father's bedroom. So we're going to stay in the hallway there because I'm not walking into my father's bedroom. I'm actually very respectful of people's privacy. And I don't go walking into their bedrooms or anything like that without their permission. So my dad's not here right now, so I'm not going to go wandering into his bedroom. And but this happened on the day of my mother's funeral. And it was one that really, really tugged at my heartstrings, and I almost got in trouble for it too. So at the same time, I'm a little ticked. But like I said, none of us were thinking rationally or anything at that point. And I would like to think that this was my mom saying hello or saying something, saying that they loved us, that she loved us in some way, shape, or form. I'm not sure, but. Getting ready for my mom's celebration of life, and I was downstairs. My father comes downstairs, and he was very angry. And he looked at me and he goes, "Why did you go through your mother's jewelry?" And I'm like, "What?" And he's like, "Why did you go through your mother's jewelry?" And I'm like, "I did not do that." And like I've said, I'm very respectful. I would never go through, my mother's jewelry boxes and look for stuff. I would not, never, never, never do that. That's not my style. I've never done it before. I wouldn't do it again. Like I have looked through her jewelry, but she's also standing there with me doing it, right? I would never do that. And he's like, "Well, somebody opened all her boxes." He says, he went in there and all her jewelry boxes were wide open. And I said, "No, Dad, I swear I did not do that." And he left it. And I think he may have been thinking too the same thing, but at the time he was very upset, obviously. And so he just sort of let it go. But I thought, okay, she's trying to tell us something. She's trying to tell us something. And I like to think it was either a goodbye or I love you or something like that. So that's what I think. I did tell this story to a friend once, and she said that it was my mother looking for something to wear to her own funeral. So I thought that was kind of a nice thought too. But yeah, so that's to me that's a very heart-tugging one for me, and does kind of hurt to get it out. But like I said, I feel these are important experiences, and I feel that they should be shared. And because they happen to me personally with people that I know that I believe are saying hello in the afterlife, that's why I'm saying all these stories. Okay, this space up here, at one point in time, used to be my great grandmother's residence. At one time, this house was filled with activity. There was 8 people who were living here. There was myself, my 2 siblings, my parents, my grandparents, and my great grandmother, all living under one roof. So it was a big, crazy house at one point in time. And I am very proud to say that I was close to my great grandmother. I'm very proud to say that I not only knew both my great grandmothers, but that I was able to spend time with them. Not everybody can say that. And I know that I spent time with my great grandfathers, but I was an infant, so I don't remember that because they passed away, I think when I was like 2. So I can't help that. So I knew 2 great grandmothers, spent time with 2 great grandmothers, spent a lot of time with this one. This was my grandmother's mother, and spent a good deal of time with her. I would play with her up here. We would talk a lot. I would go for walks with her. It might be one of the reasons why I'm so fanatic about walking. My parents would go for hikes with me when I was a baby, and then when I was a young child, my great grandmother would take me for walks down the street and back. So, yeah. It's good. I'm very proud of that. Like I said, not everybody gets to even know their grandparents. I knew not only my grandparents, all my grandparents, but four of my great grandparents. I got to spend time with two of my great grandmothers. That makes me proud. And my great grandmother that used to live with us, she passed away at the age of 93 in 1994, which 93, but I loved her, so it was hard. But shortly after she was gone, they decided that I could inherit this room. So I've basically had a room in every room in this house. But so this was my room for a little while, and it actually it's a very well spacious room that could be used for like a tiny bachelor apartment. It's got two walk-in closets. Well, the one walk-in closet, anybody who's taller than me, which is everybody, has to bend down to get through and inside. But for me, I was able to just walk in. There's a bathroom up here, and you could have like some furniture here and there and stuff like that. I loved this room. I thought it was a great room. It also had memories of my great grandmother. So I'd like to think that this incident that happened to me in this room was her. I was making wrong choices at a certain point in my life. Now, it was nothing illegal. I wasn't doing drugs. I wasn't drinking too much or anything like that. Just the choices I was making for my future were the wrong choices for me to make. I don't know how else to explain it without saying it's none of your business, but but they were just wrong choices. They were there was nothing wrong with them. They were just wrong for me. There, I'll say that. And at the same time, I was also going to college for photography, and there was a self-portrait that I took of myself that I actually liked. Which was very rare because at the time I did not like myself, and I did not think I was worthy of looking at, and I honestly thought I was ugly. So the fact that there was this photo of myself that I took that I actually liked, I was like, if I can find it, I will post it up here. It was back in 1997. that I took this picture. So, but I really liked this picture, and I decided to frame it and hang it up. So it was on this exact wall, and I don't have the picture anymore. So I'm just going to use this picture here. So he's a local artist, and I think he's still alive. I looked him up on Facebook. He's still there. So awesome. So, but anyway, this picture, I'm rambling on here, would hang up on the wall here like this. And I would leave, go to school, or do whatever. Like I was in my final year of college, and I would come home, and it would be on the floor, and it would just be on the floor, leaning up against the wall on the floor like this. And it wasn't like it fell down and flipped off or anything like that, or it wasn't like it came off and poof like that. It was just down, leaning against the wall. And the thing was, this thing had one of those, you had to lift it up in order to get it off. And it was like a nail, a thick size nail that was up like this. So it would have to be like up, over, and down. Like somebody took it off and put it on the floor. And that's what I thought was unusual about that. And this happened more than once. And by the time I got to the third time, I picked it up and I'm like, okay, this is getting really weird. Like I could maybe give it a pass. I wasn't really buying that it was just falling off the wall, but at the same time, I'm trying to think logically, going, okay, I can't picture anybody coming up to my room and just taking one photo off the wall and putting it on the floor. It didn't make any sense. So I was like, okay. And so by the third time, I was like, okay, something funky's happening here. Then it happened a fourth time. The only difference is now that it wasn't just on the floor, it was turned, leaning up, facing the wall. And I was like, what the hell is going on? And finally, I just sort of picked it up and I was like, all right, enough. I literally said this, enough. I like this picture of me. You know how rare that is. Leave it alone. It never fell down again, ever. So yeah, there's that. I'd like to think that was maybe my great grandmother either saying, hey, I'm here, or, kind of like Cher, kind of like, snap out of it from Moonstruck. I almost kind of feel like maybe she was warning me about certain things, certain roadways that I'm going towards in my life journey into adulthood that I probably should not have taken. And which is a good segue into the next story that I'm about to tell right now. Now this incident happened in the same room, but it didn't happen to me. I heard it, but I didn't see it. But it happened to a man I was dating at the time who was a complete skeptic. He was one of those skeptics that told me I was stupid for believing the things that I believed in. So we probably should not have had a relationship. Not just because of that, but remember I was saying the life choices I was making that were wrong? This might have been one of them. And again, I believe this might have been my great grandmother trying to tell me that maybe he was the wrong choice for me. So I was in here, we were going to go out together. So he was over here. Basically, over here was where I had my bed. Over there was, I had this little tiny TV. It was about this big, a television. And it was a tube TV. So it had a little box. And I put little decorations on top. And one was this glass egg. The college that I went to had a glass blowing course. And the students would sell what they blew. And one of the things was, I think it's one maybe first year, but you blow this glass egg. And it was a glass with colors swirling inside it. I thought it was cute, so I purchased it and I put it on top of my tube TV. And it, like I said, TV was about that big across the room, and then my bed was over here. I was in the washroom washing my hands, getting ready to go because my boyfriend and I were going to go out, and he was just watching television. And I heard while I was in there, I was washing my face, and I heard boom, 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 boom. Like literally, it was like something had fallen on the floor and bounce, 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 bounce. And so I pulled my head back out of the door here, and my boyfriend was like, "What the hell was that?" And I said, "What are you talking about?" He goes, that glass ball, that glass ball, it just flew at me." And I was like, "What?" According to him, it was on the TV. And it wasn't like there was a vibration on the TV that knocked it off. He said he watched it come up, levitate for a second, and then fly towards him, hit the ground, and boom, boom, boom. And when I looked there, it was at his feet. It was at his feet. So it went across the room and landed at his feet. And I was like, "Oh, I guess somebody here doesn't like you too much because you keep calling me stupid." So it's just like, but he was like, I'll never forget that. Just hearing him like, "What the hell was that?" And basically I just said, somebody doesn't like you. And it didn't clue into me that, maybe I shouldn't like him either. I shouldn't have. But yeah, so that was the other experience that happened in this room. And I'd like to think that it was my great grandmother just saying, this is the wrong person for you and you should probably make a different choice. And I wish I kind of would have listened to it back then. So I figured I'd just finish off the stories in the apartment here on my cool couch. Love my couch. But yeah, so I thought I'd just finish off the rest of the stories. There's a few more to go. I've had a number of experiences over the years in this house. So yeah, just some of them are very touching and some of them are just little things here and there. So the next story I was going to tell is something that affected me deeply in my younger years. A family member whom I was very close to passed away suddenly and unexpectedly when I was a teenager, and it left me devastated for a long time. But I had an experience here in this house that has something to do with that incident, and so I thought I'd share that with you now. So to make an extremely long story very short, when I was 18 years old, I lost a family member whom I was very close to, and I didn't handle it well. I didn't handle it well at all. I kind of went a little crazy there for a little while, and there was a time that I was sleeping in my bed, and this is the incident where I was lying down, and I was alone in the house actually this day, and I wasn't handling the situation well at all, and I was crying and crying and crying and crying, and finally I just said out loud, I said, "This isn't fair, this isn't right." He was younger than me, so he was younger than 18, and I was just like, "This isn't fair, this isn't right. We need you back, I need you back, I need you back now." And all of a sudden, and I'm in the house by myself, and I didn't feel any fear when this happened. So this is the big thing for me on this one, is I felt a depression, somebody lie in the bed beside me. I looked over and I saw the depression of somebody lying in the bed beside me. And I just stayed calm. And I felt this person lie down, and I felt a hand slip into mine like this. And so somebody laid in the bed beside me, put their hand in mine, and then I heard what sounded like Marilyn Monroe. It sounded like her voice, and it said, "Don't worry, Kyla, everything will be okay." And I immediately stopped crying, and I calmed down. I mean, everything wasn't okay right away. It wasn't like after that happened, I was happy-go-lucky after that again or anything like that. I was still a basket case. But after a while, yes, everything was okay. But I've never, ever forgotten that. I've never forgotten the feeling. I don't get touched very often, and I don't physically feel things. So that one really stuck with me for a very, very long time. And yeah, so that was very meaningful to me. Now, do I think the spirit of Marilyn Monroe came to me while I was grieving like that? No, of course not. I mean, don't get me wrong, that would be really cool, but I seriously don't think Marilyn Monroe came to visit me to tell me everything was going to be okay. But basically, if you know me for more than 2 minutes, you know that I'm a huge Marilyn Monroe fan. Big time, love her. And I think it may have been a spirit guide or a guardian angel or whatever you want to call them. I call them spirit guides, so I believe it was one of my spirit guides using a voice that sounded like hers because that was a voice that I would be comfortable with, that I recognized, and it would grab my attention. And I mean, no, not everything was hunky-dory after that, but after a while, everything did start to improve, and I went on with my life, and that's something you have to do. That's something you never get over the grief. It's always going to be there. The hurt's always going to be there. The loss is always going to be there. Like I said, I've like my mother, this beautiful lady in the blonde lady right here. I lost her in 2017, and I have never, ever, ever gotten over it. And the hurt is still there. And every time I talk about her, sometimes like I'm getting choked up right now. You don't get over the loss, but you have to move on. You have to, or you're just going to be the walking dead, and that's also no way to live. And that's not how your loved ones would have wanted you to live. So you just have to recognize the grief and know that it's always going to be there, but you have to move on. And you know, it's because you don't have that person with you anymore in the physical form, and that's what you miss. But if your loved one would not want you to be sad and horribly depressed for the rest of your life, so just keep that in mind. So that's what I think happened. I think it was a spirit guide. And I also think that my mother shows up every once in a while, still to this day, to make sure that I'm staying on the straight and narrow, and I'm maybe hanging out with my spirit guides to sort of give me a kick in the head to get in the right direction. Even today, not today, but you know, still nowadays, I can still smell her scent. She had a skin thing that she had to have specific cream for, and it had a specific scent that I would go, "That's mom." I knew exactly that was my mother. And so every once in a while I'll be doing something in the house, and all of a sudden I'll be like, "Mom," and it's like, hi mom, and it makes me feel better. And if that's any sort of help to anybody who might be upset or grieving in their own right, then I hope it helps. And one final note on the I don't even know if it'd be called a haunting or if it was just really weird timing. But when my relative passed away, I took a long time off school, and then by the time that I went back to school, I was in my car. So this really doesn't have anything to do with the house. I just find this as an interesting epilogue to the story, I guess. And I was in my car, and I had arrived at the school, but I was just sitting there with the radio on, and I was just like, I don't want to do this. I don't want to do this. I just want to crawl into a hole and never come out of it. Like, I was really down for a long time. This is after the incident of everything will be okay, and I'm thinking, it's never going to be okay again. And then all of a sudden, the lyrics of a song caught my attention. And the lyrics were, "Your mind tricked you to feel the pain of someone close to you leaving the game of life." And this is Silent Lucidity by the band Queensryche. And I had never heard this song before. And I suddenly, those caught my attention, and I zoned right in to that song on the radio. And the lyrics go, I'll be watching over you. I'm going to help you see it through. I'll protect you in the night. I'm smiling next to you in silent lucidity. And the tears just flowed. It was like the timing of this song was amazing for me to have never heard it before. And then all of a sudden hear that song with those lyrics that were so meaningful to me meant so much. And I honestly, truly believe that someone maybe was letting you know, hey, I'm here for you. I'm here for you. I don't know if it was my relative. He has relatives that he was much closer to, that he was probably watching over. Again, it might have been a spirit guide. I don't know, but I just know that every time I hear that song now, and I have sung it on my singing video on the 30th anniversary of his passing, it makes me think of him, and it makes me think that he might be here saying hello. And that makes me feel good. All right, no more of this serious talk. Let's go back to just some nondescript stuff. Nothing that makes you feel sad anymore. There have been certain times where we have the tricksters in the house that like to hide things. There was one in particular, and it drove me nuts, and I got so angry. I had lost my wallet, and it wasn't where I left it. And I remember looking up here and then running downstairs and looking over there and then running back upstairs and looking back over there and then running over here and running over there. And like basically there's one major mainstay that I would keep passing to go and look and look and look and look and look and look. And after an hour and me finally just losing my mind and getting so angry that I lost my wallet, it was sitting on a chair literally in this main place, like the center of where I was running back and forth. And we're talking, it wasn't just sitting in the seat of the chair, it was sitting on the back of the chair, plain as day, where everybody could see it, and it wasn't there before. And I didn't see it, my mom didn't see it, my brother didn't see it, nobody had seen it, and then we all came back congregated, and it was right there. So I'm sorry. Somebody stole it and then put it back, and it wasn't anybody living in the house. But little things have happened like that, like keys have gone missing, and then you find them later on, like little things like that. There's curtains that move too. Oh, that was a big one. Actually, we don't have the curtains anymore, so it hasn't happened in a while. But, I'd be leaving to go somewhere, and I'd be backing out of my driveway, and I'd look and I'd see the curtains moving, or I'd be coming home at like 2, 3 in the morning, so nobody's awake. If you do it earlier, it might be somebody just going, oh, who's that? Oh, okay, Kyla's leaving, and then it would just close the curtain. But this one was literally, 3 in the morning, nobody's home type, or nobody's awake, everybody's in bed, and the curtain would open, and then you go in the house and nobody's there. So if you're at 3 in the morning and you're coming home and, somebody opens the curtain, they're still gonna be there when you open the door and walk through. So, little things like that. There was one incident that kind of caught me by surprise, and it was my very first cat. And I called him my familiar, actually. His name was Putty, like Putty Tat. And he was a very laid back kitty, my other cat that was here, he's even more laid back than Putty was, but Putty was very easygoing, great cat, loved me, but he ended up having a very protective streak. And I remember one time I was drinking a beverage in the kitchen, and it was late at night, I couldn't sleep, so I was having a beverage, and I was upstairs just sitting, and you could see we have 2 doors to our kitchens. And he went to this one door, he was sitting beside me and just like just zoomed in on that. And then he started hissing at the doorway, and there was nobody there. I'm looking over, I'm like, what are you looking at? There's nothing over there. And he was just like hissing and hissing, and then he started to growl. And this was a very easygoing, happy cat. I had him since he was 2 months old. He was probably around 3 or 4 at the time, but he was just going ballistic, just growling and hissing at this doorway, and whatever that was not coming through. And so that was a big one. And since he has passed on, he passed away in 2009, but I've had experiences with Putty. He's come to me in my dreams, and he's come to me and walked on the bed with me, and I have heard him purring and things like that. So, I do have experiences with the cat too. And recently we lost our dog, so I've had experiences with the dog as well. She comes to me in my dreams a lot. And so it's not only the human, it's the animal element, and the animals can detect, I think, spirit activity a lot better than me. And I think I'm pretty sensitive, but my cats are very sensitive. And Putty, that's why I call him my familiar, because he was protecting me from something he didn't recognize. And finally, yes, we're in the last bit here. I was thinking, I haven't experienced anything here in my apartment ever, and I haven't really experienced anything recently. And well, that's done now because there's this funny story that I seem to have with my jewelry recently. Now, I have jewelry that is very special to me. I have it in different jewelry boxes in a different room, and I have my costume jewelry like this, stuff like this, in a separate room. So I have this bracelet, and there's nothing, it's not real gold or anything, but it's vintage, it's very antique looking, and I love it. And I have it in this box, and I keep it in the special drawer. And I have two rings that have gone missing. And one was a ring actually I had found when I was in my 20s. I just found it, and on the road, no less. And I found it when I was in my 20s. It didn't fit at the time, so I put it aside and just left it aside for I don't know how long, a couple decades. And then I was able to fit into it, so I started wearing it. And there was one day where I went to go wear it, and it wasn't in its box. And I'm like, where did this thing go? So I thought, okay, I've dropped it somewhere in here. It had to be in here because I don't take my jewelry off outside of my apartment. It's either in my bathroom or it's in here. So I was looking around on floors. I'm like, well, I'm not going to vacuum. I'll just start sweeping. And nothing came up. This bracelet I do not wear very often. It doesn't go with a lot of my clothing or anything. So I don't wear it all the time. It's very rare. So it's usually at the bottom of the drawer that I keep in this box. And one day I decided, I'm going to wear gold jewelry, which I don't do all the time. So I pulled out this bracelet, opened the box, and not only was the bracelet in here, but so was that ring. I'm like, I didn't put that in there. Okay, so that's all right. Weird. So okay, cool. I've got the ring back. I don't have to keep searching for it. I put it away. It's a real ring and it has real diamonds in it and everything. So I was upset, but I wasn't that upset because it was, found. And then just the other day, that was the last month, just the other day, I was going to put on a ring that my parents had given me for graduating grade 8, and I was going off to high school. And it is an amethyst and diamond ring, and I went to go put it on, and I opened up the box. The box was in the drawer, and it wasn't in the box. And I went into a panic mode because that was I am very emotionally attached to that. I've had that longer than the one that I had found, and I was like freaking out, and I was looking all over the place, and I couldn't find it, and I was like, where is it? And I was just losing my mind. And had to do something else, so I left it for a while, and then I went to do some blah blah blah, and I went all over it. And then as I was doing whatever I was doing out, I was like, okay, you know what? I'm gonna check the other jewelry and see if it somehow ended up in another box. But again, this is not a ring I wear all the time, so why would it be out of the box that I've had since I was in grade 8 and be there? It didn't make any, in another box. So I came home and I went to go look for it again, and immediately the first place I looked was in this box. It was in there. There's no reason why it should have been in there. Absolutely zero reason for this box to contain that ring. There's no reason why it should have been in here. So I'm like, all right, interesting. So I'm thinking somebody's playing with me again, because I know I didn't do it. Nobody's coming into my room. Nobody knows the drawer that I keep this jewelry in, so nobody knows about it. So why would anybody be playing with it? Plus also, as I respect other people's privacy, people respect mine. They don't come traipsing in here and going through my drawers. So, it was like, I think somebody outside of the physical realm might be playing with me. So, I don't know. And finally, two other really short little stories here. I'm finding recently that, for whatever reason, my MP3 player, when I plug it in to recharge the battery, keeps unplugging. I will go to pick it up and use it, and I go to unplug it, and it's already unplugged. And so I'm like, okay. Again, the first couple times, I'm like, okay, maybe I just didn't plug it in or something. But now we're taking like 3 or 4 times. I'm going over there and going to unplug it, and it's already unplugged. So I don't know if somebody's like, well, this is fully charged and unplugging it on me or what. But so that's something that I'm noticing. But I'm not chalking that up immediately to ghosts or anything. It might just be that I'm getting old and absent-minded. I don't know. But so that's just something that I found that was interesting. And finally, I'm hearing noises. So that's kind of been unusual. I know this house is a little bit older and it is settling and it does make noises. The furnace, when there's air pockets in it, oh my god, it makes these huge bangs. I think somebody's trying to blow up the house. Sometimes, not all the time. There was one, it'll just be like, you'll be sitting there doing nothing and all of a sudden bang, and you're like, what the, okay, that's freaky. The only time that I sat there and went, well, that was different, it was actually playing a tune. It was like going bang, 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 bang. So, but these are just normal. We live on a well, so we have well water, and sometimes the pipes make weird noises because of, I don't know if it's because it's well water or because it's on the well. The well make noises, I don't know. So there are natural noises that happen in the house, but a couple of times these past few weeks, there's been stuff that's happening a lot that is not normal. It's not the normal noises that this house makes, that I've come to know that this house makes. One, like my brother and my dad will go out and they'll go to work, or they'll go out for dinner with each other, and you know, I'll be like hearing them come home. I'll hear the door open, I'll hear people walking around upstairs. So I go upstairs to greet them, to say hello, and there's nobody there. There was one just the other day, it really caught me by surprise. It was, I heard my father. Now my father has, he did some welding way back in the day, and he has what they call a welder's cough. I think it's like a very mild form of COPD. And so it'll be just big, like I can't do it. It doesn't sound the same. But he has a very distinct cough. I will do plays, and if I want to know who's in the audience, and I'll be like trying to listen to see how many people in the audience. If I hear, I'm like, oh, my dad came to see this show. So he has a very distinct cough. I know my dad's cough. And I was down here in my apartment and I was doing whatever, and I heard walking around upstairs, and I heard his cough. So I was like, okay, Dad's home early from work. What's going on? So I went upstairs to ask him, you know, what's happening, and there was nobody up there. So that day I was worried about my father. I thought, does this mean something's going to happen to Dad? Nothing did. This was earlier this week, I think this happened. And so I was worried, but nothing happened. Everything's fine. I'm just starting to hear things, so I don't know if it's my brain going whacked, or or if something's going on upstairs that I can't see, but I can hear noises. I try to say, okay, the sound of footsteps, that could be something else. That could be the house settling. That could be something. But the cough really got me. That was like, okay, I'm hearing the door open and close, and I'm hearing my father coughing. So somebody's up there. I have heard of spirits that imitate people that you know. So, I mean, that could be a possibility. I don't know. Just something interesting that I found. I'm aware of it, but it's not scaring me. I'm just aware that it's happening. And that's pretty much it. Those are the little ones. That's the most recent stories. And that's what's going on in my house. So that's my story of the ghosts that haunt me in my own home. So in this house, which has been a part of my life, my entire life, I've had experiences throughout the whole history of me. So in this particular area, it happened before I moved here. It happened while I moved here. Then I moved out and didn't have any experiences because I wasn't here very often. Then I moved back in here and I've been having experiences again. So, so it's constantly going. Sometimes there's spirits that I'm pretty sure I know who they are. And then there are other times where I have no idea who they could be. So they might be people from the past, or it might be residual energy of something that happened long, long ago before I was even alive. So I don't know, but there's always been experiences here, and I'm not the only one that's experienced them. So some people have had other things happen to them as well. But yeah, I guess that's it. The story shall continue, you know, and that's kind of it for the day. And on that note, it is time to say goodbye. I am so glad that you came, and I really, really hope you enjoyed the stories and got to travel with me and see a couple little areas in my home. And so I shall take off now, and I hope you come back for other stories. Please, please, if you like this story, press the like button, and if you would subscribe to this channel, that would make me so, so happy. I would absolutely love that. I will be adding the other paranormal stories that I've been doing in the past that are on the other channel. I will be transferring them over onto this channel. And I will try to edit out the old name because it's a different name now, but that might not always work. But I'll try. And I hope you watch those too because I find them interesting. I find ghosts very interesting. Ergo, this is why I started this channel, right? And I'll always be making more. I'll find something to talk about ghosts one time or another, and have a good time doing it. And I hope you have a good time listening. So I'm going to take off for now, and just remember, just because your five senses can't detect it doesn't mean it's not actually happening. Bye everyone! Have a good night!